What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Culture Wave Media Network. We are back with another episode full of cinema news for you guys across the film and TV landscape. A lot of things that dropped this week, whether it is castings, it is the Tony Awards, we got release dates, a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined at the table this week by Zach Miller.
How's it going?
As well as Vinny Albano.
Hello, hello, hello.
So we're going to start off with some sad news first, unfortunately, to drop this on you guys if you weren't aware. But as of our recording today, unfortunately, we lost a cinema legend in Donald Sutherland. He passed away at the age of 88. If you guys are unaware of Donald Sutherland, he's best known for things like The Dirty Dozen, the film MASH, Clute, Animal House, Ordinary People, Pride and Prejudice. For people in the more in the 2010s, you guys might know him as Snow in the Hunger Games franchise, and he was an honorary Oscar recipient in 2017. And he's done a lot of great things. He's known for a lot of roles, obviously. So I just kind of wanted to get everybody's kind of take on maybe some of his performances that stuck out to you and what this loss means to you. And Zach, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. I kind of grew up with Donald Sutherland a little bit, just when I was younger. I remember watching The Italian Job too, and he had a smaller role in that, obviously compared to his other career defining work. But I liked that movie, and then I've always loved Invasion of the Body Snatchers from the 70s. That's one of my favorite of his. And I still have to see a little bit of his older stuff, but MASH, I know my dad talked about a lot too. Loved his role in that. So he's just been one of those upper echelon stars in Hollywood, and he's left a pretty deep impact. He was one of those big stars of the 70s and 80s and on, and he's one of those actors that transformed as his career progressed too. He wasn't just forgotten about in the 70s. He kept going with different roles and brought new stuff to his roles. But how about you, Vinny?
Yeah, I think obviously rest in peace. It is a shame that we have lost him. I know he had a long life, died at I believe 88 years old, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I know him from Hunger Games.
Yeah.
But he was always a very familiar face, always seeing him in the cinema landscape. And I mean, his character and the life he brought to his character in the Hunger Games is beloved and one of the most notorious cinema characters in the modern era. So he was a very talented actor, and very sorry that he's now not with us anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Our condolences, obviously, to his whole entire family. I was talking to Zach before we started recording, and I said one thing that I remember him and I really loved him in was a really underrated series on FX called Trust, which kind of came out during that time where All the Money in the World was kind of in the news because they weren't sure if they were going to do the recasting.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The John Paul Getty was kind of releasing around the same time. And it's that typical in Hollywood where sometimes you get those clashing movies where it's kind of deal like White House Down and Olympus Has Fallen, for lack of a better example. But he did such a great job as John Paul Getty in that series. So that's probably my favorite performance that I've seen of him. But I know I haven't had a chance, unfortunately, to see Ordinary People, but that's a movie that I know people absolutely adore. And the fact that he was given an honorary Academy Award for his work in 2017, I mean, it's definitely a testament to all the work that he had done, like Zach had alluded to. I mean, this guy has had a number of performances through 5 or 6 decades. And he also has a son that is very synonymous with film and television as well, with Kiefer Sutherland, the star of 24. So he's got lineage, obviously, with his talent, and it is a shame that we lost him. But everybody here at Culture Wave just wanted to send their condolences to Donald Sutherland and his family, who lost his life, unfortunately, at the age of 88. But transitioning to our next story, now we're going to jump into a casting that happened, and we're going to see Matt Damon and Ben Affleck team up yet again. Their first project since Air, which came out, I believe it was early last year, which Ben Affleck directed. But this time they're going to be starring in a film that's directed by Joe Carnahan. So the film is going to be called Rip. It's a thriller. They're planning on shooting this fall. They did say that the plot details are kept under wraps as of right now, but it is described as a crime thriller, and the project is expected to find a distributor soon. Joe Carnahan is kind of known for these like tense thriller movies. But seeing Affleck and Damon kind of come together for the first time since Air, and then they haven't done a lot of acting together in recent years, so it's exciting to see them team back up again. Vinny, I wanted to know your thoughts on, even though we don't have a lot of details, them kind of coming together and working with Joe Carnahan.
Yeah, I mean, they're like the goat friendship of Hollywood. Yeah, I always see them together. It's always nice to see them together. You know, ever since Goodwill Hunting, it goes way back. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say since we don't have too many details, but it's always exciting. I mean, Ben Affleck had a resurgence, I feel, in the modern. I feel for a long time he wasn't respected,
Mm-hmm.
and then now he's gotten after Gone Girl, and he's taken other roles, The Town, The Accountant. So I'm curious if it's gonna go into that kind of field of his filmography, Ben Affleck,
Mhm.
and that kind of like subgenre that he's been kind of, because you said it was a crime thriller.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm excited. It's always nice to see them paired
Yeah,
together.
absolutely. Zach?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what's left in store for this. I don't know, like I know you really liked Air. I didn't love Air. I
Mhm.
thought it was a nice story, but I felt like it didn't have the weight of their other work that they've done together. It wasn't as appealing to me, I guess. But I did like what they did with the story. I just think that they have better writing that they've done in the past. But I think that still their collaboration is a very good one, and it has historically proven to be pretty successful. So anytime that they go away and come back to make a film, I'm definitely interested in what they're doing.
Yeah. So I was a huge fan of Air, but I know it wasn't like high on yours or Liz's list last year, but it was a feel good movie for me.
Mhm.
This is, I think, going to go in a different direction though. I am curious on how Damon handles some of the, like, I feel like I haven't seen Matt Damon in a lot of darker kind of stuff. I mean, he does a great job in Departed, but I think it's more of like, I'm excited to see Affleck team back up with Carnahan, who directed him in Smoking Aces.
Mhm.
And I like that movie. I think that's a really fun pulp kind of action comedy thriller
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Mhm.
And Affleck kind of plays this weirdo in that film, like a little bit different, off the beaten path kind of character. So I am curious on what's going to happen with them two teaming up with a director of that like kind. Most recently, he's done a lot of, again, more like action focused things like Cop Shop. He did Boss Level, which was like a Frank Grillo movie in 2020, but better known probably for things like Smoking Aces, the A Team reboot he did,
Hmm.
and The Gray. So it's an interesting team up, but I am curious on how it's going to go, more so with Damon in the crime thriller genre, because I feel like I haven't seen him do a lot of that, but he does have that movie coming this year with Casey Affleck.
And he is pretty tenacious though with Jason Bourne. Like
Yeah.
those are he's like pretty balls to the wall with his action in that series. And then the Ocean's movies, he's pretty charismatic. So maybe it'll be a nice blend of his action and his charm.
Yeah,
So
for sure. We'll have to see
Yeah.
what comes of that. Again, there's not a lot of details as of right now, but it is cool to see Damon and Affleck kind of team up again. Our next story is one that I feel like, unfortunately, again, we don't have any details, but it is always exciting when we get a new Jordan Peele movie on the calendar. And this is going to be the first film since Nope that Jordan Peele is writing and directing. His fourth film has officially been given a date with Universal for October 23rd, 2026. So the Halloween sort of weekend, or the weekend right before Halloween, which he'll produce with his Monkey Paw Productions. Again, no log line, no details, no cast announced yet, unfortunately. But how do you feel about Jordan Peele as a director, Zach? And is there any maybe actors or actresses that you would like to see kind of maybe join his Monkey Paw universe and star in this next horror film that he winds up doing?
that's a good one of who to expect or add to it. I might have to circle back on that, but I do like. I also think it's kind of crazy that they are announcing a movie 2.5, isn't that 2.5 years?
Yeah, just about.
And it's not like a franchise. Like we only usually see that for big things, but he has kind of created a horror franchise for himself. So I do enjoy all of his things, and I'm excited for that. I just have never seen like an indie film, I guess, at that point, like announce this ahead of time. But he has such a fan base, so I think it is going to appeal to a lot of people. But yeah, since there's no anything details on it, I still would like to see Daniel Kaluuya come back, and I would like to see, I don't know, maybe Lakeith Stanfield again, and maybe Michael B. Jordan. I don't know.
Okay.
Like there's a good community around his base already that I mean those guys are great in all of his stuff so far.
What's your favorite Peele movie?
It's tough. It's between Get Out and Nope. I
Okay.
think I just didn't like Us as much as I was hoping, but I know some people really like it. So
Yeah.
But yeah, how about you?
My favorite Peele movie probably Get Out.
Yeah.
I feel similar to you. Us is probably my least favorite of the three. I think it has some good moments in it. I think Us is probably there's some good moments of comedy in Nope too, but I think there's moments in Us that I think are just like laugh out loud funny.
Yeah.
But it didn't hit in that same way. Like Get Out to me is like one of my favorite movies, probably the last like 20 years. I absolutely adore that movie. In terms of like, I agree with what you're saying. Universal obviously has a lot of invested in what Jordan Peele represents at this point. I mean, you saw it when Nope was coming out and they set up that like mini amusement park that was representing like of that town that they had in the film. So Universal is willing to spend the money because they know they're going to get a lot back in their investment. Peele is like net, which is kind of crazy to think where he came from as like a sketch comedian, is now in this echelon of like, if you say Jordan Peele, people are going to go to the movie theater because it's a Jordan Peele movie. It doesn't matter necessarily if it's connected to a franchise, which none of his things are. So I think that's really cool in and of itself. In terms of seeing people he would work with, it's hard. I know Michael B. Jordan is a good one. I think that he's one that I would be interested in kind of seeing his take in something like that. I'd also like to see him work with somebody that I feel like is really off the beaten path of doing the kinds of movies that he does. Like, I would love to see maybe somebody like Jeremy Renner do something with him, because I feel like it would take him in a whole different genre and kind of see how he would do. I don't feel like I've ever seen Renner in a horror movie before. So I would be interested in kind of seeing how he would adjust to something like that. And I like Renner as an actor. So, Vinny, what about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you guys. I know a lot of people that didn't like Nope. I loved Nope.
I enjoyed Nope.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
I actually really liked it, and I'm just like hyped for whatever he has in store next. Zach, you mentioned Lakeith Stanfield. I want to see Lakeith. I love him so much in Atlanta, and he's an amazing actor. And his part in Get Out, albeit very brief, is such a captivating performance that he puts on. So I would love to see him back working with Peele again. Kind of going off with how you brought up like someone like Jeremy Renner. I would like to almost, I feel every film he's done has been through a very youthful perspective. Like the characters are very young. I might want to see like an older perspective. I don't know, maybe someone like Denzel. I don't know if Denzel would ever work with Peele, but
dude, Sam Jackson in a Jordan Peele
I was
movie?
just thinking about like yeah, you're right. Like the older background would be a better, like a mentor, or like some crazy old guy, like Lighthouse vibe could even be crazy too. Like I don't know. Willem Dafoe, like I don't know.
Yeah, and that's basically my thoughts. I want to see a newer perspective, I guess he takes here. Definitely want Lakeith back. I just want to see Lakeith in more things.
Yeah.
No, Zach, when you brought his name up, I was just like, duh.
That was like his beginnings too. Like he was just kind of getting those, like, then he got Sorry to Bother You. Yeah. And you know,
Atlanta around
yes,
the same time.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it was all around the same couple of years, and he's grown so much since then. And his part was not even that big in Get Out, but it was good. So, you know, I would love to see him in a leading role more often anyways.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
For sure. Definitely excited to see what comes of Peele and this movie in 2026. But like you said, we're 2.5 years away. So I think we're still even further away from getting
we might forget about it for a little bit.
Exactly.
But then, you know.
But kind of pushing it back to the present, the June 14th through the 16th weekend was 2024's biggest box office weekend of the year so far, raking in an impressive $213 million. Last year, the same weekend pulled in 164 million, 2022, 165, 2019, 136, and then 2018 was probably the biggest in recent years with The Incredibles 2, and it winded up making 271 million opening weekend. The biggest reason probably for that is the release of Inside Out 2, the newest Pixar film, which I believe had the second biggest opening of the year besides Dune Part 2. And it was one of the biggest openings in June ever. So it's always exciting to hear when the movie industry is making money, because they can hopefully start to take that money and put it into other things, whether that is better sequels or telling these better stories, or even, again, implementing that back into smaller movies and giving them a platform. Vinny, I don't know if you had any comments on sort of the box office weekend, your thoughts on kind of the state of what's happening in box office. And also, I don't think you had seen Inside Out 2, but is that one that you're excited to see or you plan on seeing?
Yeah, so I've actually never seen Inside Out 1.
Okay.
So I might have to do some homework. But I mean, it's been on my list for a very long time. I just haven't got to it. It's interesting that, you know, aside from Inside Out 2, since that's a sequel, but I feel like it's not like a, you know, like a huge sequel, at least. Maybe more because it targets, you know, a bigger demographic, you know, because you can get young kids in there, you can get older people in there. But I'm surprised to see that this week has been very big compared to, like, you know, in the past we've had superhero movie openings and whatnot. I don't really have many thoughts, but I'm excited to see more to come this year. You know, we still have a lot more movies coming out, so maybe something can overtake this weekend.
Yeah,
this
absolutely. Week. Zach?
Yeah, I'm also pretty happy that I think Inside Out is the reason for most of those earnings too. Like I think what was it, like over 100 million, that movie alone?
I think it did probably about 165 million.
Of the 213, which is pretty crazy.
That's a lot.
So,
yeah.
But it's also encouraging to see that families are showing up to the movies for the right movies too. You know, I think there are kids movies that, you know, they just look a little generic, but Inside Out was such a big success for the first one that the second one has such an audience. I didn't expect it to have that much buzz in for the first weekend too. Like, I thought people were just going to go see it over the next month or two gradually, but for them to show up opening weekend is pretty impressive for an animated film nonetheless. But I think we've also been in a cold streak at the theater as well. Like, I think that since Dune, there's only been a couple hits to like kind of hit theaters. There's been a lot of horror movies. There's been a lot of like action movies that are all different studios, and then, you know, so it's a lot more streaming. I think that was bigger between Dune and now. So I think we're about to hit that groove of the bigger named movies too before the end of the year.
Yeah.
So
I think it's definitely encouraging, because I feel like some of the movies that we were excited about, unfortunately, were like disappointments at the box office. Like, I know one that sticks out to me is like The Fall Guy was a movie that was really fun, and you would think with Gosling and Blunt leading that, it would do well in the theaters. It didn't do too well. It's been a while since the first Inside Out, so I think there was a lot of people clamoring for that, but even more so for just a great story. I think the first Inside Out, what they had working for it was that at the core of it, and Pixar does a good job with a lot of their projects, but Inside Out was relatable to all kinds of people. Like, everybody deals with their emotions in some way, shape, or form, and implementing these new emotions in this film, including anxiety, which is a part of the mental health crisis, right? Like, people, it speaks to them. So it is cool to see that, especially because I feel like in recent years, Pixar's films have been bombing. Like, ever since they started to do that day and date thing on Disney Plus, they were not doing well. Like, Turning Red didn't do well. Lightyear, I know, bombed. That other movie, Strange Planet, which was like a real original Pixar movie, also bombed. So it is cool to see that Inside Out 2 was a big part of leading that charge. And, you know, as cinema lovers, it's always great to hear that there's money coming in, because if there's money coming in, hopefully that means that they could spread it out to all different projects, and we could start to see some other things get made because of it. So biggest box office weekend of the year thus far. Like Vinny had said too, still a lot to come. So I think we have some chances of maybe breaking that, which would be cool. But moving on to a movie that also is epic on a different scale. Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis finally got a distributor with Lionsgate, and it's got its release, which is going to be September 27th, 2024 this year. And it did premiere at Cannes. It got mixed reviews. If you don't know who Francis Ford Coppola is, you're probably living under a rock. He is the director of the Godfather trilogy. And it's been a long time since he's made a movie that has this much like people clamoring around it. So Zach, I definitely wanted to start with you because I know that you have been tracking this project for a while. And now we finally do have a date to it. So what are your thoughts on Megalopolis, what you've been hearing, and that you're going to be able to have a chance to see it in September?
I think it's like I'll show up for this movie, but I also am interested of why why it took so long for it to get a distributor, especially with such a big cast and a big name behind it. Like almost feel like there is a personal reason, or maybe the film was not as marketable as Coppola was hoping, and it took a while. But ultimately, it was such a big movie that somebody was bound to pick it up. So I am also surprised that Lionsgate picked it up, not a distributor like MGM or Paramount that he's done a lot of business with in the past. It's very interesting to me. I definitely will see it, but I've also heard like lots of rumors of on-set like mistreatment and stuff like that. So I don't know if I vibe with that, but you just hope for the best situation, and hopefully people got a valuable experience out of it. But I don't know. I'm still skeptical a little bit based off of the trailer. Like, there's a lot of film bros that are like, this looks amazing, like this looks great. I'm like, okay, like I get it. Like, I'm excited for it, but I'm still hesitant on, like, I don't think this is gonna be the opus that he might be hoping for, because it's like $100 million funded by himself out of his own pocket.
Yeah, I think
It's a risk.
I think that's the scariest part of it, because it's $120 million budget, completely funded by himself.
Yeah.
There is in the news report, there's no clear indication on how much Lionsgate is paying for marketing. So that's a whole nother thing. They're
Sketchy.
You don't really know what's happening with it. I do agree in terms of the news that was coming out that was speculated that he was having some on-set issues, but even on like an artistic level with this film, like there are things that I've heard about this movie that are problematic. Like there's apparently a scene, or there was in the premiere, that like there's a scene in which a live actor comes out on stage and interacts with the film, and it's like,
are you serious?
yes. And it's like, how can you justify that you can't do that in every cinema across the world that this movie might screen at? I mean, you can hypothetically, but that seems like a lot of organization and things to go right. So I'm interested also in, like, the movie is a 52 on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's kind of down the middle. Like there are people that really like it. There are people that don't like it.
52%?
Yeah.
See, that's not even good for a starting rating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like you too, like, what is this movie going to represent for people? I think the older audience is going to come and see this movie because they're fans of Coppola. But like, I don't think you're going to get a lot of, like, in terms of how like you were getting people to go see things like Saltburn. Like, I don't think it's going to have that effect. Like I don't think it's gonna be able to do something miraculous. Kind of. I don't even know if that's what Coppola was hoping for. But we don't have to wait much longer to see.
Like, Vinny, what do you think about how, like, the world that he built in this film was like different from his other stuff, obviously, but like, do you think it's a risk for him to be doing it this late in his career, or
I mean, it's certainly a risk. Everything about this film really interests me because, one, you talk about the world, it's this like almost dystopian sci-fi, which I mean, to my knowledge, I don't think he's ever really tapped into that genre on such a scale before. And I've read reviews of people who've got to see it in premieres, and I've heard like it's either like people absolutely hate it or people like love it. Like, I see memes of people comparing it to like Babylon, where like got terrible reception, but audiences loved it. So I'm like so really interested
Mhm.
on what's the deal, what's the secrets, because YouTube bring up very valid points of like, why the hell is it so like, why isn't this being released sooner? Why hasn't this been made sooner? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's so much mystery, and like, kind of makes me scared. And then hearing reviews, I'm just interested. I'm definitely gonna see it when it comes out. I'm glad that it had distribution, just for the fact that I think it will benefit from just people seeing it. Because I want to see it. So yeah, that's really it.
I can't even imagine like how much money this movie needs to make in order for it to be deemed like quote unquote a success.
lot.
That too.
A lot of money.
And if people do not like it that opening weekend, I don't know if people are going to show up. Because
Yeah.
you have a movie like Furiosa.
That's the one I was gonna bring up.
Like, that movie was supposed to do well.
Yeah.
And on paper, especially given the past success of Mad Max, and then it didn't. Like, that was the biggest surprise to me. So if you think of a movie like that was supposed to succeed, then this is already getting down the middle reviews. It's going to be challenging.
Yeah.
So,
Oh boy.
Fantasy
I'm-
League coming,
I was
bro.
gonna say, I'm curious, man. Megalopolis is gonna be kind
Yeah.
of crazy. But moving on from the big screen to the stage, this past weekend was the 78th annual Tony Awards. I unfortunately didn't have a chance to watch, but our very own Zach Miller worked on the set, so a little round of applause for
Oh,
Zach.
thanks, man.
But on top of that, a lot of major film stars did capture Tony Awards as well, including Daniel Radcliffe, Sarah Paulson, Jeremy Strong, Jonathan Groff. All received Tony Awards. I know Zach also had a chance to see Sarah Paulson's play, that she was there. So I want to save you for last because you have like a direct kind of correspondence with it. Vinny, you have any thoughts on any of these big time actors getting these awards?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too versed as much as I want to be in the Broadway scene currently, but I mean, the fact that Daniel Radcliffe won, though, like, such respect. He's one of the few people that I really respect. I feel it's a shame a lot of kid actors, they kind of grow up and lose it, and that's understandable because the industry fucking sucks.
Yeah.
But no, Daniel he's just a cool guy. He seems like a really nice guy from the interviews and the videos I've seen of him. So I'm glad that he's getting the appreciation that he deserves.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. I guess I'll go next because I don't know a lot of this. I've heard great things about all the shows. Merrily We Roll Along, I know is also getting this rollout similar to how Hamilton got. They're going to be filming soon and releasing a video format of that full show, which I can't wait to see that. Echoing what Vinny said, I mean, Daniel Radcliffe, I agree. Like, he's so synonymous with Harry Potter that it's like sad he's never been able to kind of break out of that, regardless of how hard he tries and how completely opposite of a direction he'll go in. Like Swiss Army Man, it's like the entirely opposite thing.
I love that movie.
But it would be it is really great that he received an award. I hope it leads to him getting more opportunity in film and television because I think he's so great. Jeremy Strong already being halfway to EGOT is crazy to me.
Yeah.
I think that like he's such a power, like such a unbelievable force when it comes to his acting. Maybe some of that is Joaquin-esque. I mean, with his method acting, which I think is like, I mean, that's a hard line to walk. Like method acting is a unique choice. But I have heard that An Enemy of the People is also a tremendous show. So shout out to him. But I know that you got to see the show, Zach, that Sarah Paulson led. If you want to talk about that and your just overall thoughts on the award winners.
Yeah, appropriate. There was also Corey Stoll was in it, and he was the brother of Sarah Paulson's character. And I mean, that show was like, that left me wowed. Like, that was I had great expectations, but it surpassed it. Like, her performance in that, and Corey's, even all of the cast members, it was really cool. Like, just I like seeing, as I've gotten older, I mean, not even that old, but like I've gravitated more towards straight plays, and I really like what Paulson was able to do. And for her to come out with that energy every night, I can only imagine was exhausting, but she totally deserved that Emmy. Unfortunately, it closes, I think, in a week or two, or maybe this week. And you know, if anybody does have a chance to see it in its final coming performances, it's really worth it. And it was just like a very thought out, thorough play. But to see A-listers get awards like this as well, like I think Sarah Paulson was also saying something like it can be a little dangerous for Broadway because you want to give those young stars a chance, but at the same time, marketing a show, you do want to see big actors along with these ensemble players, and then they're starting their career. They have good supporting cast roles too, and then they can fill in leading roles when
Later on,
they get
yeah.
big. Like, you know, Hamilton was a farm of just talent, you know, and all those people have gone on to do like very successful things. So I do like that you bring in A-listers to bring people to the seats. You know, like I think that's what Broadway needs at the moment, just because of rebounding off of COVID.
Yeah,
You know,
for
like
sure.
you need the financial side of it to be accommodated, but from I mean, just from outwardly looking in, I think that they're staying true to the artistic sense of it, and you know, I all these people were very deserving of it. They were also saying that Jonathan Groff winning was like DiCaprio winning an Oscar for theater in this
Yeah.
sense. So you know, he's been in the scene now for a while, and then he's gone and done Mindhunter and back to Broadway as well. He's a very talented individual, so he deserved that Oscar as well. And I'm just excited to see what more of these people do. And I think it's so cool that you can go from TV and film and then be like, all right, I want to try something new. Like Radcliffe, especially, was probably like, I want to keep distancing myself from the franchise aspect and just showing that I can do character work. And then he's also, you know,
And it's
in
a musical,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, which
So
is even
it's-
more remarkable.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see his transition too, from like he went, because I think right before he did Merrily We Roll Along, he did the Weird Al Yankovic biopic. So it's like maybe he was doing that to train himself to get or feel more confident in being able to sing on stage all the time.
Yeah.
But I have heard that show's amazing. I've heard Appropriate's amazing. So shout out to all the amazing winners, even the ones we didn't have a chance to mention of the Tony Awards. I want to go see more Broadway as well. I've gotten to see a handful of shows, and I do echo a lot of what Sarah Paulson said. I think it's a great, and Hamilton's a great example, Zach, like you brought up. Like you see all the amazing people that started in that cast, and you're like, they're all somebody in Hollywood now, which is so cool. Next story we're going to cover is one that I'm super excited about. It is the casting for Richard Linklater's next movie, which Sony Pictures has acquired the rights to it. It's called Blue Moon. And he is going to write and direct this film. It is his 9th collaboration with Ethan Hawke. And Ethan Hawke is going to star in this as well as with Margaret Qualley, Bobby Cannavale, and Andrew Scott. Apparently, it's been a long time passion project for himself and for Ethan Hawke. And it's going to film in Dublin, Ireland. And apparently, it's going to have to do with the final days of Lorenz Hart, who was part of a hit songwriting team, Rodgers and Hart. And the film is going to be set primarily in a restaurant during opening night of Oklahoma in the 40s, which was Rodgers' first collaboration with Hammerstein, who ended up replacing Hart. So very interesting story. I love films that take place in one location. I think it's such an interesting concept. So I think it's cool that it's also going to be in a restaurant. I'm super stoked for this because Linklater is one of my favorite directors of all time. I love his collaborations with Ethan Hawke, and I love all the other talent attached to it. So I'm excited to see, especially, I love Margaret Qualley. I think she's a really great up-and-coming actress. So I'm really excited to see this film, Blue Moon, when it does come out. Zach, what are your thoughts on the casting so far for Blue Moon?
Well, and then you got like Bobby Cannavale and Andrew Scott, and Andrew Scott is coming off the period piece of Ripley. So I like the casting all around. I can see them in a 40s setting or 50s setting, and you know, I think they're all they're all good players. So Linklater has a very broad, or he casts a wide net with his movies too. Like he has something different each time, and he has very human stories. I think like he kind of focuses on the character work first, I feel, and plot second. So I like all of that in his movies, and you know, always seeing that collaboration with Ethan Hawke is really cool too. But yeah, Vinny, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this really excites me because he is one of the most talented filmmakers of the modern era, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And also, this cast is crazy. Ethan
Yeah.
Hawke, I love Ethan Hawke. You mentioned Margaret Qualley. So like I want to see her in more and more stuff all the time, even starting in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Loved her in that, and just want to see more of her. Also Andrew Scott, you mentioned. Like this is a crazy cast, and the plot and the idea that it's going to be a bottle film just really really interests me. So this would probably be high up on my list when we get a release date.
Yeah, very excited for this film. Next story, we go from something that is a little bit more with that indie feel to something that is going to be a big budget thing. Coming off the success of the fourth Bad Boys movie, Will Smith is getting another opportunity to star in another film. It is with Sony again. It's not a surprise. Someone he's collaborated with a lot in the past. It's a sci-fi film called Resistor. And it is an adaptation of a 2014 novel called Influx that was a New York Times bestseller. The book focuses on a government agency that locks away inventors in a secretive prison and hijacks their work. There is no director yet attached to it. However, the screenwriter that penned the first draft did Bullet Train, and the second hand of the script is going to be done by the screenwriter of Top Gun Maverick and American Hustle, Eric Warren Singer. So really interesting talent attached to this so far. I think it's interesting that Sony's gonna. I mean, they obviously have confidence in Will Smith, and I think that Bad Boys Ride or Die was the chance to kind of see what was gonna happen, like after the slap, the infamous Oscar slap.
Yeah.
And they saw that he could still be a bankable star. I mean, there was like social clips of him showing up to the movies and watching Bad Boys with people, and people were like, "Oh my God, it's Will Smith!" So it's like people are still excited about him. I think it definitely sounds interesting, but I'm curious. I mean, until there's a director attached, it's hard to like see how that vision's gonna play out. I love the screenwriters attached to it though. And from a talent perspective, I still think Will Smith is a fantastic actor. So that's my thoughts on it, Vinny.
Yeah. It's a weird situation because after the incident at the Oscars, I don't know. Like I feel like a lot of what Will Smith has been coming out with has been very much like hit and miss, hit and miss, hit and miss. Like you mentioned, the writing staff here is what excites me the most. You have two heavy hitters, so I don't know. That might be the saving grace here. I'm curious. I'm not too hyped. I feel like honestly, I'm gonna be real. Like when I was younger, I loved Will Smith, and then I got older, and then I just feel like his hype has kind of gone.
Yeah, died down a bit.
So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Okay,
Yeah.
Zach.
I'm gonna pass on this movie when it comes out, man. Like I've loved Will Smith growing up, and Fresh Prince was one of the first shows I would watch before going to school in the morning, and I've been a fan of him up until the Oscar thing, and I'm like, I can't respect the guy anymore. Like for that to happen, and for whatever state he's in, like with Hollywood and his marital issues, and just how outspoken he is and so off the rails lately. I don't know what it is, but I just can't support that anymore. Like it's just part of the studio system too. Like they're just giving him this. They wouldn't have given him this if Bad Boys didn't make money. Like that's how I feel about it, because he's basically in like actor jail, and then they give him a known IP that he did with Martin Lawrence that had success. And they're like, oh, this is the easy road back for him to make money. And he did, and it's like, okay, well, are you selling your soul though a little bit, like as Hollywood, and like you're kind of just enabling that kind of behavior is okay.
Exactly.
Same thing with the Oscar ban. Like they banned him for 10 years. Like why can't it be life? Like I don't know. It's like, and then they still gave him the award. Like there's that whole thing. Yeah. So it's like I don't know. I just, you have many other talented actors that will give you money, deliver you money. Like it's okay if his career, like that was the end of his career. He's had a good career. So that's just how I feel. And I don't know if this is like, this movie would make the same money as Bad Boys, but
Yeah.
that's remains to be seen.
Yeah.
So
Tough
a
line to
lot.
walk for Big
Yeah.
Willie style, man. Not sure what's gonna come next in Will Smith's career, but he has signed on to a new project, so that's why we're talking about it. The next thing we're gonna transition quickly to television, because Tatiana Maslany is going to star in a pilot for Amazon MGM Studios, and this was one that Zach had put on the notes that I was so curious about when I read the plot details for this. So I want to read this aloud to you guys. It's definitely interesting. It's called The Night Beast. It's going to be written by Leah Rachel and Travis Jackson. Leah Rachel said her most known credit is something called Chambers, which I've never heard of. Travis Jackson, it's Hemlock Grove, which I know was a show, I think, on AMC that did pretty well. But Maslany is also going to produce the pilot that follows a young mother who is unsatisfied with her seemingly perfect suburban life. So she begins an affair with the boogeyman in her son's closet, a surprisingly sexy man called the Night Beast. But this harmless affair she thought to be a figment of her imagination begins to have unexpected consequences as her two worlds increasingly begin to collide in this seductive, darkly comedic tale.
It's a lot to unpack there.
Batshit crazy plot. I think it would make for a great show. And I think it's interesting and it's different than anything I've ever heard. And I do like Maslany in the things that I've seen her in. I haven't watched the show Orphan Black, I think it is, and she won the Emmy for. I've heard it's remarkable, and I've heard she's incredible in it because she plays so many different characters as herself.
She-Hulk.
Yeah, I mean, I know her. I know her best for She-Hulk. She-Hulk is whatever. I'm diving into She-Hulk. I don't think she's the problem with She-Hulk, but I do think that she has a home in television, and I think this could be a really interesting project for her. Zach, what do you think?
I think for it to be, I think it has to really sway towards the comedic side of it, because you're talking about a sexy boogeyman called the Night Beast. Like, it's got to be very satirical, I guess, to not turn people off.
Yeah.
Or else it'll just be melodramatic. But it sounds like it's going to be pretty comedic. I hope so. Could be wrong. But, Amazon has an interesting bunch of shows, too. They have some heavy hitters, and then they have, some very, you missed it shows. I don't know. So
that's fair.
It's up to that.
That's fair.
Yeah, Vinny, what do you think about this?
It interests me a lot, actually. I hearing the plot, I love when shit just gets weird and crazy. Honestly, I wouldn't even mind it if it wasn't comedy and they just fully embraced the weirdness of it. But we'll see. That's honestly all my thoughts. I'm excited for it, and I want to see more of Maslany. I haven't seen her much either, to be honest. I've like you said, I've heard Orphan Black is great. So I'll definitely check this out when it comes to Amazon.
Yeah, definitely an interesting project for sure. And if Vinny likes weird things, then this last news story is for you, Vinny, because we have a Spaceballs sequel in development, also at Amazon MGM Studios. Mel Brooks will be producing it. Josh Gad is set to star. The film will be directed by Josh Greenbaum, and it's going to be written by Benji Sammet and Dan Hernandez. And Josh Gad. Those previous two are best known for screenwriting things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which is the new animated film that had dropped, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, and The Addams Family 2. So unique history in screenwriting. Zach is making a face, so we have to go to him first. Zach, you seem very upset about this news.
This is just ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Why are we making a sequel of Spaceballs? Spaceballs was good for the time that it was made into. That's the satire of it. I love Spaceballs. And not that I will be offended that they make a sequel for the fact that people Spaceballs is a silly movie. It's not something that is
it's a parody
in anyone's
movie, literally.
Yeah. It's not in my top 5 ever. It's not something in that regard, but it's purely a satire that you don't need to satirize again. And it's just it's desperation. That's what it is to me. The studios are making their continuous pokes at their sequels and prequels and 40 years, 30 years after the fact. It just seems like a desperate cash grab. And now there's Adam's Family, the Beetlejuice movie coming out.
Mhm.
Beetlejuice might be good, it might not, but it's a long gapped sequel.
Yeah,
Like we've
yeah.
seen that trend for now like 5 almost 10 years.
Yeah.
So what is the problem with Hollywood if that's
Well, they
the
can't come
trend?
up with any original ideas, and I agree with you, Zach. At least with Beetlejuice, there's a lot of the original people
Sure.
intact, and that
Yeah.
are coming back on board, and it's a project that like Beetlejuice 2 has been in development since the 90s. They
Mhm.
just never found a way to make it work.
Mhm.
I mean, Tim Burton was so busy in the 90s, and Keaton kind of hit this different stride and all that stuff. To me, I don't even understand why they would attempt to make a Spaceballs, and it's being called Spaceballs 2. It's not like a reimagining, which even that you don't need it. Parody movies aren't. They're also redoing. What's the other parody movie they're doing right now? Naked Gun, like
They're doing a Naked Gun
with Liam Neeson. So like, why are we doing this? To me, it's even more like I also like you. I'm not an unbelievable Spaceballs fan, but I know a lot of people that love Spaceballs. Like it's one of their
Sure.
favorite comedies ever. And I think the original movie is so fun, but a big part of the reason that first movie is so fun is because Rick Moranis is in it, and
Yeah.
because John Candy is in it, and it's because it was of the time. Now, the other part of this is that it's not that funny to make fun of Star Wars anymore, because Star Wars is kind of in a weird position where there's shit on that isn't good. So if you're gonna parody what's been happening in Star Wars, and there are fans that are genuinely not happy with the way Star Wars is being run right now, I think it's like a tone deaf idea. It's nothing against Josh Gad. It's nothing, and because I like Josh Gad, but this is something that to me it's like there's no need for this whatsoever, and I think it's a terrible, terrible idea.
It's also just that like the first Spaceballs was like completely dependent on the genius of Mel Brooks, you know, like, and his success with Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles, like those worked so well in their own right that he didn't need to make a sequel. You know, like those were all satires on existing pieces, and to make a sequel off of a satire, it just doesn't fit to me unless they do very like current cultural events, and like they go after whatever the state of the world is now, and then they're incorporating the Star Wars part of that. But at the same time, then it's like going against his style, and then Mel Brooks is in his 90s, so then it's like, what does he really have to offer to this narrative? Like I feel like it's going to just get hijacked too. I think that's my concern.
Yeah,
but
for sure. Vinny, you want to
Yeah.
wrap us up?
I totally agree with both of you guys. I think it's unnecessary. I think it's just stupid. It's just a very stupid idea. They came out with History of the World Part 2 recently on, I didn't watch it, but I heard it was terrible. And that's another Mel Brooks film that I really enjoy. I own A History of the World Part 1 on DVD, and I watched it when I was younger, and I thought it was very funny. And like when I heard of the news that they came out with a sequel to that, and it wasn't getting positive reception, I kind of just rolled my eyes, and I'm having the same reaction here, where it's like, okay, it's unnecessary. It's, it's just kind of stupid.
Yeah.
So
Well, it is stupid, and so we're gonna end on a stupid idea. That's
Yeah.
not on us. That's on Hollywood, ladies and gentlemen. But that is majority of the big news stories that have happened this week. The week it's ending on June 21st. So thank you guys for tuning into this. If you guys are a fan of this, also let us know in the comments, what are some of your favorite stories? What are things that you're excited about? Maybe you guys are also pissed like us about Spaceballs too. Let us know. We'd love to have a conversation with you guys in the comments regarding any or all of these news stories, as well as maybe laying out some of your favorite performances of Donald Sutherland's career. Unfortunate that we lost him. If you guys can follow us on social media, we are at Cinema Wave Media and at _Culture Wave Media on Instagram. We're also at Cinema Wave Media on TikTok and Threads, as well as just Culture Wave on Facebook. We have tons of other stuff in the works for you guys. A lot of reviews on the channel, interviews recently that we've been doing, and a lot of other great things that we have upcoming for you guys. So please be sure to check that out. And if you guys can subscribe to us below, we're on the road to 500 subscribers. So please subscribe if you can, and be sure to give this video a like as well. Just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Zach Miller.
And I'm Vinny Albano.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.